came down. There was a terrific explosion. It vanished. Then nothing happened for a while. Then it came up and found a place where it could come to shore. Things came out of it. I can't describe them. They're motes, even in my binoculars. But they aren't human. A lot of them came out. They began to land things. Equipment. They set it up. I don't know what it is. Some of them went exploring. I saw a puff of steam where something moved. Lockley?" "I'm listening," said Lockley. "Go on." "Report this," ordered Vale feverishly. "Get it to military information in Denver, or somewhere. The party of creatures that went off exploring hasn't come back. I'm watching. I'll report whatever I see. Get this to the government. This is real. I can't believe it, but I see it. Report it, quick." His voice stopped. Lockley painfully realigned the instrument again for Satell, 30 miles to the southeast. Satell surprisingly answered the first call. He said in an astonished voice, "Hello. I just got a call from Survey. It seems that the Army knew that there was a survey team in here, and they called to say that radars had spotted something coming down from space, right after 8 o'clock. They wanted to know if any of us supposedly sane observers noticed anything peculiar about that time." Lockley's scalp crawled suddenly. Vale's report had disturbed him, but more for the man's sanity than anything else. But it could be true. And instantly he remembered that Jill was very near the place where frighteningly impossible things were happening. "Vale just told me," said Lockley, his voice unsteady, "that he saw something come down. His story was so wild I didn't believe it. But you pass it on and say that Vale's watching it. He's waiting for instructions. He'll report everything he sees. I'm 30 miles from him, but he can see the thing that came down. Maybe the creatures in it can see him. Listen." He repeated just what Vale had told him. Somehow, telling it to someone else, it seemed at once even less real but more horrifying as a possible danger to Jill. It didn't strike him forcibly that other people were endangered too. When Satell signed off to forward the report, Lockley found himself sweating a little. Something had come down out of space. The fact seemed to him dangerous and appalling. His mind revolted at the idea of non-human creatures who could build ships and travel through space. But radars had reported the arrival of a ship, and there were official inquiries that nearly matched Vale's account, which was therefore not a mere crackpot claim to have seen the incredible. Something had happened, and more was likely to, and Jill was in the middle of it. He swung the instrument back to Vale's position. His hand shook, though a part of his mind insisted obstinately that alarms were commonplace these days, and in common sense one had to treat them as false cries of wolf. But one knew that some day the wolf might really come. Perhaps it had. Lockley found it difficult to align the carrier beam to Vale's exact location. He assured himself that he was a fool to be afraid, that if disaster were to come it would be by the imbecilities of men rather than through creatures from beyond the stars. And therefore— But there were other men at other places who felt less skepticism. The report from Vale went to the Military Information Center and thence to the Pentagon. Meanwhile, the Information Center ordered a photo reconnaissance plane to photograph Boulder Lake from aloft. In the Pentagon, hastily alerted staff officers began to draft orders to be issued if the report of 2 radars and 1 eyewitness should be further substantiated. There were such and such trucks available here, and such troops available there. Complicated paperwork was involved in the organization of any movement of troops, but especially to carry out a plan not at all usual in the United States. Everything, though, depended on what the reconnaissance plane photographs might show. Lockley did not see the plane, nor consciously hear it. There was the faintest of murmuring noises in the sky. It moved swiftly toward the north, tending eastward. The plane that made the noise was invisible. It flew above the cloud cover which still blotted out nearly all the blue overhead. It went on, and presently died out beyond the mountains toward Boulder Lake. Lockley tried to get Vail back, to tell him that radars had verified his report, and that it would be acted on by the military. But though he called and called, there was no answer. An agonizingly long time later, the faint and disregarded sound of the plane swept back across the heavens. Lockley still did not notice it. He was too busy with his attempts to reach Vail again, and with grisly imaginings of what might be done by aliens from another world when they found the workmen near the lake, and Jill among them. He pictured alien monsters committing atrocities in what they might consider scientific examination of terrestrial fauna. But somehow even that was less horrible than the images that followed an assumption that the occupants of the spaceship might be men. "Calling Vail. Vail, come in." He fiercely repeated the call into the instrument's microphone. "Lockley calling Vail. Come in, man, come in." He flipped the switch and listened, and Vail's voice came. "I'm here." The voice shook. "I've been trying to find out where that exploring party went." Lockley threw the speech switch and said sharply, "The Army asked Survey if any of us had seen anything come down from the sky. I gave Sattell your report to be forwarded. It's gone to the Pentagon now. 2 radars reported tracking the thing down to a landing near you. Now listen, you go to the construction camp. Most likely they'll get orders to clear out by shortwave. But you go there. Make sure Jill's all right. See her to safety." The switch once more. Vail's voice was desperate. "A while ago, a party of the creatures started away from the lake. An exploring party, I think. Once I saw a puff of steam, as if they'd used a weapon. I'm afraid they may find the construction camp, and Jill." Lockley ground his teeth. Vail said unsteadily, "I can't find where they went. A little while ago, their ship backed out into the lake and sank. Deliberately. I don't know why. But there's a party of those creatures out exploring. I don't know what they'll do." Lockley said savagely, "Get to the camp and look after Jill. The workmen may have panicked. The Army'll know by this time what's happened. They'll send copters to get you out. They'll send help of some sort, somehow. But you look after Jill." Vail's voice changed. "Wait. I heard something. Wait." Silence. Around Lockley there were the usual sounds of the wilderness. Insects made chirping noises. Birds called. There were those small whispering and rustling and high-pitched sounds which in the wild constitute stillness. A scraping sound from the speaker. Vail's voice, frantic. "That exploring party! It's here! They must have picked up our beams! They're looking for me! They've sighted me! They're coming!" There was a crashing sound, as if Vail had dropped the communicator. There were pantings and the sound of blows, and gasped profanity, horror-filled profanity in Vail's voice. Then something roared. Lockley listened, his hands clenched in fury at his own helplessness. He thought he heard movements. Once he was sure he heard a sound like the unshod hoof of an animal on bare stone. Then, quite distinctly, he heard squeakings. He knew that someone or something had picked up Vail's communicator. More squeakings, somehow querulous. Then something pounded the communicator on the ground. There was a crash, then silence. Almost calmly, Lockley swung his instrument around and lined it up for Sattell's post. He called in a steady voice until Sattell answered. He reported with meticulous care just what Vail had said, And what he'd heard after Vale stopped speaking. The roaring,